Here he comes from heaven. Here he comes parting the clouds above. Oh, here
Wow,
comes the Lord to
That's
charity.
beautiful. That's
I want to
beautiful.
join along, but I'm paralyzed.
Oh, here comes the Lord, toot your birdie horns, then upon his finger perch. He may come here to stay, just to watch us pray in his favorite church.
Welcome to Moralton University. Our channel is run by a small collective of deeply unhinged individuals who meet on Discord to talk about Moral Orel. We love Moral Orel. We are deep in the trenches about this show, and we're obsessed with it, and we treat it like it's Shakespeare, and all we want to do is talk about it. So in order to, feed our Moral Orel addiction, we've chosen to present it to the world in this long-form video essay form. Really more like discussions between a bunch of friends who just really like a show.
All right, so hey guys, I'm Senna. I first watched Moral Orel probably about 2 years ago. Kind of was dormant in the fandom for a while, looked at a bit of fan art. Didn't let myself get obsessed with it, but gave it another watch not that long ago, and now I am completely lost in it, so there's no going back at this point. My favorite character is Blabberta, and I pretty much like everybody, but that just speaks to how good the show is.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I also go by Ellie. I first watched the show earlier this year, maybe May or June, on the recommendation of one of my best friends. Since then, I've watched it more times than I can count, an embarrassing number of times. And I am also trying to get as many people as I can to watch the show because I don't think enough people know about it. My favorite character is probably Clay, but I really like the majority of the characters except for Principal Fakey. I hate him.
Hi, I go by Wes. I first watched the show a few years back. I hadn't really given it much thought because I was just kind of like passively consuming it. And then earlier this year, one of my students brought it up in class, and I gave it a rewatch, and I gave it another rewatch, and I gave it another rewatch. And now, needless to say, it lives in my head rent-free. My favorite character is also Clay, just because he's so psychologically fascinating, and I do love most of the characters as well.
Hey guys, I go by Dima, and I'm generally also a Moral Orel fan. I found about the show in 2020 from a YouTube clip, and I started watching it out of curiosity, but I soon rested with watching it like a lot of times. And instantly I immediately went to post fan art on Tumblr. And I think I've been like in the Tumblr community for a lot of while until I went into Discord. And I'm still thinking constantly about Moral Orel. My favorite character is Oral Puppington. But I like every other character in the show, honestly, because everybody in Moralton is very deeply interesting to me. And I'm very interested in breaking down every character, hopefully in this discussion and future discussions.
So what's Moral Orel, guys?
It's a show.
It's a show about puppets that used to
They're
be on
all
Adult
Christian.
Swim.
They are all Christian. They're Christian
It's a very holy
fundamentalists.
cartoon.
Moral Orel is a TV show that ran on Adult Swim from 2005 to 2008. It centered on Oral Puppington and his misadventures as a little boy who only wants to honor the Lord in everything he does, but who gets rather unclear instructions from the adults in his life and can never quite not fuck everything up.
Very well said.
He's very autism coded.
Indeed.
I've heard him referred to as God's most autistic soldier.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
100%.
my favorite thing. The show also centers pretty heavily on Orel's family, particularly his parents, Clay and Blabberta. Clay is a raging alcoholic, who tries to present himself as the very like traditional masculine father figure. He gives Oral a lot of lectures about his behavior when he messes up, but his points are always terrible. He kind of like scolds Oral for the wrong thing, which is, part of the humor of the show. And then his mother is a bit disconnected. She spends a lot of her time cleaning. She's an interesting character. I think Santa can speak more on Liberta. And then his little brother Shapey, who screams a lot, just generally causes problems. He always
Spoiler,
wants cake.
he is the catalyst for the first major conflict in the series.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. He's the second coming. That's why.
He is the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. but no. What actually happened?
Yeah.
Is that Clay finds out that he realizes rather that Shapey can't possibly be his kid because he doesn't fucking look like him, and they almost get divorced over this, but season 2 begins with them not getting divorced at all and getting back together for appearances. And this turns out to be the worst decision of their lives.
Besides getting married.
Imagine how different Moral Orel would have been. Yeah, exactly. Imagine how different the show would have been if they actually would have gotten divorced in that episode. Like, really.
There wouldn't be a show.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Like, that's the key to healing.
You're right.
Yeah.
Divorce.
What makes it so brilliant?
The writing, the characterization. I mean, it's a very tight show.
Yeah, the writing is brilliant.
Yeah,
it's so perfectly done. The humor in it is excellent, but they're also very good, I think, at crafting dramatic storylines for each of the characters and giving each character their own unique voice and experience that the audience can really find themselves in and relate to. It's really just, I think, a perfect mix of comedy and drama, and I wish it had been able to go for the full planned 5 seasons.
Oh, don't we all?
The reason I feel that Moral Orel is brilliant is because they have, developed a story where the themes function together on multiple levels. And, so the look of the show is based on a show called Davy and Goliath from the 1960s. And that was a show that was funded by the Lutheran Church. And it was made by the creators of Gumby. I know Art Clokey. I think his wife also helped. I don't know his wife's name. Let's change that later.
So it'll just be edited in, like, really obviously.
First off, they know what they're referencing. They know what they want to comment on. And just this meta aspect of it being a stop motion show where the characters also do stop motion animation. Like, Orel does these little stop motion cartoons at the end of every episode with his little toys. It's layered when you think of, like, you think of humans being made by God, and God made Adam and made Adam out of clay, and these are little figures made out of clay, and we're moving them around. I think this theme is really present in the episode Omnipresence. It's so layered and so funny. But beyond that, they want to discuss these themes that are much more human and much more socially relevant. They want to talk about queer themes, and they do it so well. They talk about racism and sexism, and
I think one of the themes they tackle, like, absolutely beautifully is addiction. I think the way they do it is so nuanced and compassionate. I don't think characters like Clay often get that kind of empathy in shows. I usually gets treated by, like, some kind of joke. The character gets painted very one-dimensionally, but I think Clay is afforded a level of empathy that's rare to see. Especially, I think, in an Adult Swim show from that time. it's something I really love about Moral Orel.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Like all the characters are very, very they're all very human, and like I know that was the intent of the show. Like I know that was mentioned by Scott in one of the interviews that they wanted these characters to just be like the most human like things on television, and that would be the joke, was that these claymation puppets were like in this intense like drama and everything was just so serious, and there's just so many layers to all these characters.
What makes Moral Orel so fascinating to me is that they're able to portray such realistic depictions and writing through simple-looking characters and Muppets.
Mm-hmm. And in only 11 minutes.
Like how when you first watch the show, like in season 1, the first episodes, you look at it and it's like a very simple show. The characters are very simple looking. The writing is very obvious as in the comedic intent.
It's got these ideas that they're presenting. It's satirizing things in such a way that, you know, it would be hard to talk about it otherwise.
Moral Orel felt like, to me, when watching it, it felt like watching a theatrical play. I don't know, like this is the vibe that I got. Like a very great thing, because when you sit in a theater and you watch some characters, when the first play starts, you just like got introduced to the characters, and especially in a comedic drama, like you don't see the drama yet, but you see these characters and you're introduced to them, and everything happens so quickly in front of you that you can't help but be stunned by you know the plot and everything, like the dialogue, everything happening in front of you.
One of the things about watching the show, when you're watching it from the beginning, like blind, you don't know anything about what's going on, like that like climb from season 1 is just, it's just a journey. Like I'm trying to find the right words here, but like you see these characters who are very stereotypical, like they're very much like the roles that you would expect from like a you know, the Davy and Goliath style, like family, like nuclear family, stuff like that. And then you kind of just see like it slowly creep in, like bit by bit there's little things that are just off. And like once you get to the end of season 1, it's just like I didn't even know how to explain it when I got to the end of that, like of the Best Christmas
Oh yeah,
Ever.
I get it.
It was a lot.
It's almost jarring, not in the sense that I think they don't set it up well, but it's the end. I think the end of the episode in particular is so shocking. There's no resolution. It's just Orel out in the cold, praying that God will make it better. He's saying, you know, you still have 2 minutes. You can, you know, I believe in you.
That's another brilliant thing, because you know, the way that the show is filmed, it often presents their little world from this God's eye point of view, where the viewer gets to look down on them and kind of judge them as if the viewer is God. So it's almost as if Orel is praying to the viewer to keep the show on.
Yeah. It's like you have to watch everything happen and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Everything just
it's I think definitely a major turning point in the series is the season 1 finale, and I would say the next major turning point is the 2-part nature episode, which to me was like just such a dramatic turn in the tone of the show and in Orel's character. And I'm sure we'll do an episode on this at some point, but it's such a gorgeously done set of episodes and really set the tone for what season 3 would be and what the rest of the show was supposed to be. And I think it's some of the best work they did in the entire show.
In a way, nature kind of presents the consequences of what they didn't go through with, rather, in Best Christmas and the beginning of season 2. Yeah. Where they wanted the divorce and then they didn't get it. And what happened when they didn't get the divorce? It's that, you know, well, he wished he'd gotten the divorce.
After the finale of the Best Christmas Ever and the start of season 2, they immediately shift back to that, you know, that kind of normal episode. tone. Like, you get this very dramatic finale with Oro praying in the snow and being all that feeling of helplessness. And then when you start season 2, it's like very cheerful and stuff. And you're like, well, there was like a lot of things that didn't get resolved.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
think all of that gets resolved in the ending of season 2, the finale
Yeah.
of season 2.
I think part of what you point out with the start of season 2, it's kind of like a reset to that, like everything's normal, everything's fine. And I think it like, because that's what Clay and Blaberta are forcing themselves to do in their marriage. It's what they're forcing the kids to think, you know, like, we're staying together for you, everything's normal, it's fine. So it kind of does that to the viewer too. It's like, okay, the family's together. Maybe they shouldn't be, but we're forcing it. So we're gonna have this like hard reset to everything being okay. And I think that's a really interesting way to start the season. And it does work really well with that build up to everything falling apart in nature.
Dino Stamatopoulos, he always says the show isn't a parody of Davy and Goliath, and it's not. It is a parody of 50s shows like Leave It to Beaver that tend to center, the father figure as this, this fountain of wisdom who will fix your life with all his advice. So the idea originally for what became Moral Orel was a script called Iggy, and the main character of it was supposed to be punk sensation Iggy Pop, the aged punk rock star Iggy Pop, shirtless Iggy Pop, that guy. So he pitched him the script, and the script was pretty much the plot of Waste, the Waste episode in Moral Orel. But Iggy Pop would be playing this 12-year-old boy as himself, and everything else would just be normal. And it would have been live action. But whatever happened, Iggy Pop did not return his calls or something. He might have been high, according to some stories. And so the script just kind of sat with him until he decided he was going to retool it and make it a stop-motion show.
Also, if anyone listening doesn't know the plot of Waste, it's Oral being told that waste is wasting anything is sinful. So after he goes on a camping trip where he learns about using your urine in emergency situations to preserve energy and nutrients, he starts drinking it and then start selling it.
As a sports energy drink.
As a sports energy drink.
Gatorade does taste like piss.
I guess the main takeaway from this segment is we can all thank Iggy Pop, because if he would have returned that call, we would have never gotten Moral Orel.
Yeah, we would have never gotten Moral Orel. We never would have gotten the canon Clay and Danielle piss kink.
Stop!
I mean, it's true.
It is true.
It is true.
So somewhere in the development of the show, they thought, wouldn't it be cool if we started off the show being really typical giggle, ha funny, and then it got more serious until finally these puppets end up being the most human characters on television.
Mm-hmm.
And that was their plan originally. They would have shifted from the show being Moral Orel, which is the show about the little kid who's always getting into weird little Christian hijinks, into a show called Moralton, which would have been about the town at large and all the characters in it.
Would have been glorious.
It would have been so good. We lost so much.
We got a taste of it in season 3, but really, Oral's story never got to really finish. I don't care what they want to paste at the end of Honor. We never got a real conclusion.
The ending scene of Honor is not canon to me. Like,
no, we have the canon screenshot.
Namely that, like, the plan would have also included Blaberta leaving Clay for Officer Papermouth, and according to certain non-canon sources, Clay might have left Moralton altogether. canon because the song was on the creator's album.
That's
And
true.
Like if you listen to the lyrics and if you read the lyrics, that sounds like it's about Clay. So in my heart, it's canon.
Wasn't that song
We
also
really need
in
the Clay middle-age crisis.
It was.
We
It was
do.
before.
Oh God, I have faith in you. Watch!
No! Wait!
Moral Oral, but it
Yeah.
was like a piano version of it that they had in there.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
I
it
didn't
was in the
find
show?
that one either, even though it sounds so beautiful.
I didn't know it was
Yeah.
in the show.
So, Moral Oral would have become Moralton and gone on to show the characters to be human and show us this emotional journey that we totally missed out on. Why did we miss out on that?
Why?
Because Adult Swim
The
is the
network.
enemy. Adult Swim is the enemy.
Because it's too serious. Bring back the pee. I want him to drink the pee, please.
Bring back the pee. Bring back the crack.
Yeah, let's get an episode where they pee on each other while they're high on crack.
But what really went wrong was that they, the producers who had greenlit the show, they didn't want Oral to change. They thought that the earlier episodes were much funnier and that was the draw of the show. And this idea that Oral was going to go through a trauma and then fundamentally change because of that trauma was, I think, a problem for them, that they didn't have that cute kid anymore. So that's a part of it. Oral's character arc was not to be. So what are some other reasons?
Alone.
Alone.
Yeah, the maybe the darkest episode in the series. It's
I wouldn't say that. I mean,
Well, do you guys think Alone is the darkest episode in the series?
I think it's the least okay for television based on
Yeah.
how it was presented at the time.
I
I
think
don't know
it's
if I would say it's definitely up there,
yeah.
but
yeah.
it was at the time a very it was considered pretentious at the time based on some forum comments that I've seen that were written at the time it was airing. It wasn't funny. It didn't fit in with the rest of the series. When people saw it, it was like, oh wow, so now they're taking, they're showing this thing that was a joke formerly, and now we're taking it seriously.
Mhm.
And I don't think people responded well to that. I think that Adult Swim's audience is a lot more. Yeah.
sorry.
Imagine watching Alone when you're high. Imagine
Yeah,
that.
I don't want to cry. Okay,
Maybe darkest episode isn't the right way to put it. I think it's maybe the hardest to watch.
realist. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It was too real for television, as people
I think
say.
it's really ironic to say it's pretentious to show like genuine lack of words, genuine like depictions of like the effects of like sexual assault and like other things. Censored also like her own case and everything, but like
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that tells you about what the audience was at the time. Today we can talk about these things in television and really respond to them. When they approached those themes in Tuca and Birdie, people really responded to that. I'm trying to think of other shows that did it, but I kind of can't.
I really
I-
haven't seen that much media that does, at least not in cartoons. I don't.
No. I would really love to know kind of the viewer demographics of Adult Swim at the time, just because Alone is centered on like the sexual trauma of women. I wonder if it was a predominantly male audience, and maybe that didn't
I
go
think
over
so.
I
well.
wouldn't be surprised
That
if
might
that
have
was
been it.
true.
I don't think like Moral Oral was very popular at the time.
I don't think it was either, based on how Dino was talking about it in some of his like commentaries. Like he would always and he again, I said this before, but it could have been like self-deprecative humor on his part, but he also used to be he would say stuff like, oh, like for the 5 people who are watching this, and like talk about forums.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So Adult Swim starts at what, 10 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
9 p.m. based on
pretty
like
late.
what they would have showing, it would have started with like South Park and then Family Guy, and then you'd get some Robot Chicken, and then later on, really late in the night, they'd show Moral Oral, and that's if anyone is still awake and wants to see it.
So it had like a really
Damn.
like graveyard time slot.
Yeah.
It did. It had a graveyard time slot, but the people who were staying up to watch it were very passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Very small dedicated fan base. That sounds right.
Moral Oral actually does air on Adult Swim, but it airs at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Yeah, I saw that. So they know about it. They're still using it for airtime. They're still posting Twitter posts about it when it's relevant for them.
Yeah, okay.
Posting
Did you guys see
Mother's Day
the Mother's
fans.
Day post?
Yeah, of
they did
course
for
I
Roberta?
did. Of course
Yeah.
I did.
That's
my
the
God.
most popular
The
post on
audacity.
it's the most popular post they have. They have all these comments yelling at them for canceling the show.
Rightfully so. Like, I mean, not canceling, but rightfully so, yelling at them.
Yeah.
Thousands of comments of people being like, "Why did you cancel the show?" Adult Swim cancels the show and then posts a fan cam. You know,
It's like they gotta be doing that on
Roberta fan
purpose.
cams.
Adult Swim's audience at the time that Moral Oral was airing was either not staying awake long enough to see the show, or they were stoners and didn't like it.
Funny puppet show, stop being funny. Take it off.
Now it's scary.
Now it's scary.
Like
I feel
imagine
like
watching Nature High. No.
Or imagine
No, that would be
watching, like,
scary.
Grounded High.
Oh no.
Oh my god. That would be awesome, actually. They eventually got a note from the producer saying about Alone, and also its follow-up episode Raped, that this is the nail in the coffin. We're pulling the plug on the show. Can you wrap it up in 13 episodes? And that was what ended up being season 3. And because they were asked to wrap it up in only 13 episodes, that was where they started doing their most experimental sort of storytelling.
I think I remember seeing something also in one of the commentaries where apparently they were receptive to what was being done with those 13 episodes, and then he had said something like, oh, they were like, oh, well, we'll let you do whatever you want, and he was like, well, can I have the other 7? And they're like, no.
Let's not be too hopeful.
Yeah, come on. What do you think this is, fair?
They switched from doing a linear kind of storytelling style to a non-linear style, where they would show they had the nature episode and the two-parter, and it was they wanted to show everything else that was happening at that time. And so we get a bunch of episodes happening at the same time as nature. We get Sundays, we get Dumb, we get Numb, we get just a series of these.
Well, how would these episodes be published if, like, they weren't rushing it?
I don't know. I think maybe they intended to do it at the beginning, and they were just forced to choose what episodes they wanted to use to wrap up the story. So everything had been going according to plan up until Sacrifice.
Yeah.
And they wanted to stop at
Yeah.
Sacrifice. And then they had an afterthought where it was like, okay, some of our directors didn't get to direct yet, so we're going to do these other 2 episodes, Nesting and Honor. And those are going to be the 2-parter finale. And these episodes take place like months in the future, after what would have been this, huge character arc where Oral has his grandpa living in his bedroom and actually dying in his bedroom, dying in his bed.
If I remember correctly, his death was supposed to be the finale of the season, right?
That's true.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
There's some implication
I mean-
that Honor wasn't actually supposed to be the finale of the season. It would have taken place earlier in the show, and it wouldn't have been at Christmas.
If Oral's grandpa's death was the finale, that means we also will get Emo Oral as either the finale or the opening of the next
I
season.
feel like it would have been maybe
You
like
were robbed.
I feel like it would have been into like season 4, like probably
Yeah.
potentially would have been showing in there. But I guess we don't really know,
No.
because I guess it was technically planned for season 3 in some capacity.
Maybe it would have
Yeah,
been
but like imagine an
introduced
opening
in
of
the
a
finale.
season with Emo Oral.
That'd be raw. I'm trying to think of how they really like, because some of the scrapped episodes that never got to be are very, I guess, precarious in the timeline. It's kind of hard to place some of them.
We know that Easter would have happened after sacrifice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But as for like, and like obviously the death episode being like the end, but then a lot of those other episodes are really just like character focused, so they're not really, their place is important, but it's not really something I guess they thought of at the time, so it probably really wasn't like thought out.
Yeah, no, with them making Nesting and Honor kind of like a two-part finale, and it taking place so far after everything else that season, it is a really jarring shift in tone, like especially for Oral. He's just so much more like toned down,
very
and depressed, and just such like a muted version of himself. He's just kind of a darker outlook, and it's such a sudden shift because a lot of the episodes prior to that are flashbacks.
You know, it's like weird. after nature, nothing really happened, and then they did sacrifice, and then they skipped to Nesting and Honor. And Honor wasn't even supposed to be after Nesting, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a flaw because, I mean, we should have seen Oral's character arc more clearly after nature.
I feel like it's really jarring to like see, you know, this boy who's like, who looks up to his father like wholeheartedly, and then you see him just like completely like disenfranchised with him, coming into Nesting and the final episode as well to some extent, but like it's a little bit less so. But in Nesting especially, he's very done with him. It
doesn't really follow because, you know, in Sacrifice, it, you know, stopped with Putty telling him to have hope. Yeah. And Oral wanting to have hope is trying to call up his dad and find out where he is.
Yeah.
And that's where Sacrifice ends. And then we go into Nesting, and he's sided against his dad and is, you know, trying to get somebody else elected.
Yeah. And we learned there's apparently been like 6 months where Clay like hasn't talked to him.
And it's not really explained.
Weird.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird part of that episode, in my opinion, and definitely due to time constraints and cuts in episodes, but
well, that's the thing. It was because Nesting wasn't even, you know, they didn't intend to make it, so it was kind of a rush job where they had to, you know, splice the script together and make it, you know, link up with Honor, so that they would have something resembling a finale.
Yeah.
There's some characters who are kind of starting to, you know, their character arcs are beginning. You get to see Bendy reconnecting with her son, but also Bendy, you know, is she like a good parental figure? She's 24 and she's never taken care of a child before. What's that going to be like?
And on top of that,
exactly. So, I mean, Nurse Bendy's character arc like wasn't technically finished.
No,
it wasn't. You know, it kind of stopped at this pleasant place where, oh, look, they're having a good time with each other. But, you know, you still kind of wonder what would have developed from that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people just take that as oh, well, that character had a happy ending, so, like, we're good. But, like, really the story was not even, it was just, like, starting. Like, there was, that was where you finally, like, I mean, you get to see her coming.
That was the beginning of her story. That was the beginning of her story.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like, because in Alone, they establish, like, she has really severe trauma and a very dramatic coping mechanism. It doesn't make sense for her to just reconnect with Joe and for everything to be better. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it feels a little too convenient, I would say, if that was how it resolved, like, truly. Like, there had to be more planned there, or at least there would have been.
Sculptum would have had her own episode, and, you know, it would have been a great one. I like it.
I like the concept.
It's one of the ones where they put out so Dino had put out 2 of the episode scripts that had been written and unproduced, and one of them was called Raped, and it was about Agnes Sculptum, who is Oral's teacher. In that, she discovers that the botched abortion that she tried to have didn't actually work because she had twins, and she'd only managed to abort one of them. And because the doctor found out, suddenly felt like she had to get married so someone could help her take care of the kid.
And that really speaks to the culture of Moralton and like all the societal pressures and everything. I think that, yeah, that definitely had the potential to be a good episode if it had gotten like a fine tuning to it. It's kind of a hard script to read.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like just because it was an early draft, or if the execution would have changed it in a way.
And yeah, there's probably a lot of flair that goes into it from the animators and how they decide to interpret that script and how it runs. But the what was the whole entire? I'm sorry, maybe we summarize the plot of that one just because not everyone may have read it.
Yeah, so the rest of the script would have had her going to the Freedom County Prison and taking her students there on a field trip to see all the criminals in cages like they're animals at a zoo. And she would have, met up with the guy who was also a rapist and who was the former roommate of her rapist, and she would have tried to marry him so that her child would have a parent who knew at least his original father. But that doesn't go through because of insane troll logic, and she ends up dating a police officer who is a lesbian in disguise as a male officer at the prison that she was at. And they can't get married because gay marriage isn't legal in Moralton. At the time that it was written, gay marriage in general was just not legal. So it kind of shows the hypocrisy of, being able to legally marry a rapist who is in jail, but not being able to legally marry someone of the same sex.
Yeah, that when you made that comparison, that's like that
Crazy.
really like drived it home for me. Like that the commentary was at least like worthwhile in that episode.
It took a while to get there. They kind of buried the lead with it, but when they get there, it's like, oh wow, yeah.
It's a good payoff. I also, in terms of character arcs that were cut short or maybe not included, for ones that just weren't included, Shapey and Block were supposed to get their own episode about the ways that they kind of nurture each other because they don't get that emotional support from anybody else. I really wish we'd gotten that episode. I love Shapey, so
yeah, I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have preferred seeing that over what they chose to do for the last two episodes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of the scrap ones I would have preferred to see over the last two.
Oh, I know we were supposed to get more with Christina, and maybe the Posabules as well, but definitely Christina. Some other characters that I'm actually kind of wondering if there was more planned for, it's like Dr. Potter's Wheel with the thing in Sacrifice about, the stuff Clay says about his wife, like kind of suggesting
that's an
he murdered
interesting
her.
one.
I feel like
That I think they hadn't really brought up anything about it until someone had brought it up in a Q&A, and then he said he was interested in exploring it, but the show didn't really go on, so I don't know if it would have been in the third season.
I feel like if they had gotten to the Moralton point of things, I'm sure every character would have gotten some sort of like look into. I mean, so many characters were still kind of in the background status by the time the show closed off. It's like we know so little about them. Some characters got literally one episode, like Dottie and Florence. It's like they were setting stuff up for these characters and their situations at the time, and then the plug got pulled like at the prime moment. It really did get like shut down like at its like right when it was about
it was just getting interesting.
It was just about to go down the hill.
It was just getting good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
with like the Dottie and Florence episode, I understand they needed it to set up Putty's part in Sacrifice, but like there's other episodes I would have loved to have seen in its place.
Yeah, I like Sundays, but it was not necessary, I would say. Like, why not just I don't want to say like I don't want the episode because
it was like I think they were working on Sundays much earlier than they were working on other episodes. First off, because it's kind of a clip show, it includes all of these sermons from the older episodes, so it would have been cheaper for them to produce.
Yeah.
And as they were kind of introducing Florence and Dottie, they were showing Officer Papermouth's motivations in there. They were showing Putty's motivations in there. It was interesting because it would have set up not just Putty, but it would have set up Papermouth's whole thing with Liberta.
Yeah, and you saying that it does like kind of bring it into perspective a little bit more. It's like that. It's a key episode for like setting up those two like plot points that would be touched on later.
We just unfortunately didn't get the payoff.
And speaking of the paper mouth Wilberta thing, I'm not trying to like talk about this for obviously, but technically Dumb does also set that up to some degree because the Sunny Bear was supposed to be apparently part of that storyline. At least how it would start. That's what I remember from the Q&A.
Abstinence. So that one was great because a couple of the interns who were on the show, they had the animatic and the voice recording for that episode, but they hadn't started animating it. And because all the puppets were in storage, they decided they were going to rebuild the whole set and recreate all the characters, but in clay. And then they animated it.
Honestly, they're too good. They're too good to us, Moral Orel team.
Yeah.
They did that for free. They didn't get paid for that.
Yeah, like
they did it for
that was just a passion thing.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That episode's interesting. I think it's not like my favorite. I mean, it's a Doey-centric episode, which like okay, cool Doey,
but
like...
it also sets up more of Censor Doll being insane, which I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think it's interesting that we don't see Clay or Bluberta in that episode like at all.
They're not in it at all.
I mean, Doey's not going to have to stop them from doing anything. So.
Yeah,
they're having a break.
Great point. And interestingly,
I think...
Oh, go ahead.
So I think that we got a couple of Doey episodes in that season. Abstinence being one of them and Trigger being the other. So what I think might have happened was that as they were kind of sort of transitioning out of the Moral Orel-esque episodes into the more Moralton-esque episodes, one of the ideas that they'd have would be that when Orel is, when he's walking normally and he's not carrying if his leg isn't in a cast, it's before nature. And they could continue to do these funny, happy episodes, like just because, it takes place before that. But when he is wearing a cast, it happens after nature. But I also wonder if they were thinking of using Doey as the new Orel and having weird, strange things happen to him that are more lighthearted and less mature. So I think that was why he was starting to feature more, is that he was going to kind of become the new comic relief protagonist.
I can see that to some extent. Not as interesting
yeah.
protagonist,
but in the meantime, Orel was like going through a crisis of faith and dealing with his home drama and stuff.
Yes, I could see that.
Like, well, I suppose when like Orel's going that emo phase, like his friendship with Doey would like strain a little. Like Doey would struggle with his friendship with Orel, so maybe we'll like see some of that.
I feel like Doey just is like too one-dimensional. I think he just goes along with Orel, does he not?
Yeah.
I mean, like just from what I'm trying to remember of his character. Sorry, I don't think about him that much, but
we'll go. Okay.
Yeah, he just like goes along with pretty much any stupid thing Orel suggests anyway. So I guess
Orel asked him to kill him, and he did it.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Anything Orel wants.
Bye, Orel.
Like,
bye, Orel.
Like, I think, this is like a little bit of a tangent, but I think if they had expanded more on Joey's character, I think what I would, at least personally, what I would have liked to see is maybe some stuff about kind of like his friendship with Orel kind of falling apart, because I honestly don't think they're very good friends to each other.
I agree with that.
Because Orel honestly doesn't really listen to Doey, and then Doey's just kind of like Orel's yes man, and in Trigger, he's kind of awful to Orel, so I would have, I think,
oh my god,
Orel's
a bad friend. He's a toxic.
I think one of the
Doey's interesting. He has nobody. He's a kid who has nobody. He's kind of like I imagine what Clay's childhood might have been.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely like a sad character. Like I pity him 100%. but
Mhm.
like I guess it's just we didn't really get to see. He's just like not like if he was really somber kid and like I guess I don't understand how his character comes to be the way he is now, like based on how he
Mhm.
was raised, because I guess maybe it's because he was technically spoiled while being like shunned away, so it's like
Mhm.
he just has this money and he runs around and does whatever he wants with it. I'm sure for a young kid that's like really like enticing at first, and then when you start to grow up and have emotional needs, it's like, oh, okay, this sucks, and that's why it like comes out in really bad ways for Doe.
Yeah.
Like going after
I,
a
I
teacher.
kind of I kind of got the sense that, Doe was not raised by his parents because his parents were, probably teenagers when they had him and didn't give a shit. So his dead grandpa must have done most of the raising. And then, when he dies and the kid is just stuck with these essentially sibling figures in his life, who just throw money at him and, just let him run around. He runs amok. Of course he's scared. Of course he's a scaredy cat because he doesn't really have an adult to turn to. Of course he gets attached to adult figures who are willing to offer him any kind of guidance. Of course he gets embittered and he gets jealous when he sees people getting and having, this thing that he doesn't have. He's, this little kid who really desperately wants a parental figure but just cannot find one. And I think that's mostly the driver of his character and what's turning him into such, he's becoming a real ass because of it. But, no one's there to tell him not to be.
Yeah, and that was really well said. Like, he could have been interesting. I don't think he's not interesting by any means. Like, I don't want to say I don't like him. I just... He needed something else. They needed something else, just like all these other characters.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like
quite
comical relief
make
to
it
me.
there.
Like he doesn't feel one-dimensional. He definitely like has some character depth.
But he is kind of status quo-y enough that they can use him as the funny protagonist when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hopefully, if the show had continued, hopefully that would have been kind of infrequent.
Dang.
Yeah.
Doe hate train.
I'm not a huge Doe fan. Like, I definitely feel bad for him. But
honestly, I would have preferred the Shapey episode over a Doe episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's okay. We got to see them singing for 5 seconds.
Yeah, 5 whole seconds.
Another thing about abstinence. Sorry, let me just get this off my chest. Not only do you see the Shapey and Block thing, but Papermouth is featured a decent amount in that episode as well. So it all comes in circle. It all comes in circle.
Yeah.
It's showing you who the important characters are.
There's the homosexual boss.
Yeah. Also, that's the only other time Dolores Stoop Down appears for all the Dolores fans out there.
Moral Orel. Beforel Oral. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
How long
that
was before Oral?
It was released
4
in
years.
2012.
4 years, okay.
So 4 years. They said maybe you can have a couple of specials, and they only gave them the one special and a few promos.
Because of course.
And the promos, I think, were very interesting because they featured a lot of characters who did not feature in the special, so they were recreating puppets for that. And what that tells me is that they were going to pitch the continuation of Moral Orel.
Yes.
If only.
My theory.
In our dreams.
If only.
In our dreams.
Yeah, I mean they made this Stephanie puppet.
Yeah.
So, like,
And Stephanie said the B word.
She got to say bitch. She got to call Censored Doll a bitch.
Wow, you're a bitch. Be that as it may.
Which honestly, so satisfying.
Yes. Like, oh my god. Yeah.
Oh man.
But
Yeah, and they also made the Missing Link puppet.
Yeah, and Nurse Bendy as well.
Which is a really detailed puppet to make for a single promo that you're never going to reuse, you know?
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Missing
Yeah, they were bored.
It was Missing Link, it was Joe, Bendy, and Stephanie, I think. And yeah, were the ones that were not in the show or movie.
Yeah.
In the
no,
special.
Bendy is in the episode, but it's her with her curlers. She.
Oh yes.
Which is weird to me because she should be a lot younger there.
Yeah.
What an episode. We get to see the Shapey conception.
Oh yeah, that was
I love that. That's my favorite part of it. It's crazy.
I mean, if anybody is really out here going, I don't want to watch that part. That part was just like too much for me. Okay, maybe you should turn off the TV. I don't think this is old enough for you. Or I don't think you're old enough for this.
Don't watch
They're
Yeah.
claymation puppets. They don't even have genitals.
Like literally.
Dude,
that's
and I think that part was funny to me. It was.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry, like the little sperm with the mustache is so funny.
It's just so
Yeah,
silly.
and it's got Shapey's voice. It starts screaming
It's
too.
so, yeah, it's very ham-fisted, and the special does kind of feel that way in a lot of ways, and it's a tonal shift for sure.
I wonder if it was because there were viewers doubting that Stop Frame was Shapey's father.
If you doubted that, I think you need to go take a Lexile test. Or like,
Yeah,
you'd be
like,
surprised. Some people will
you're not
just
sure
lie.
that he's his father. Well, here, have it.
Actually, I think
It's his sperm.
I think one of the worst takes I saw was someone saying that. Oh my god, what was it? It was like, I heard that Liberta was supposed to have an affair with Paper Mouth, and I'm just like, that's how you got Shapey. I'm like, what?
What?
That's not.
Open the school.
Some people just don't. They have no like literary like reading skills. I'm talking about oral, like it's
Also,
literature.
Also, just like take a vision test if you don't know. Like
it's literally
they look
even Dino,
exactly alike.
Even Dino is like, here's a little not subtle thing I like to do. I literally fade the camera into him, and it's Danielle from Shapey, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I love that.
How do you guys not get it?
Even Clay got it. Like early on, he was like, "Yeah."
There's literally a scene with him holding the pictures. Like,
yeah, I love that scene.
Like, no, if you needed freaking Danielle's ass in the camera to learn that Shapey was his fucking son, you should stop watching.
We all had to suffer for the people that didn't get it.
Fertilizing the egg. Just
You're the reason we got that scene.
But yeah, it was. I mean, I think that was a problem in general with the viewership, where they just weren't kind of understanding certain things about the story. And so Beforel Orel comes in, and the whole tone of it is different. The whole tone of it is so very in your face and very factual and very, this is what is happening right now. Here's another thing that is happening. We're being very obvious about everything. And it's not anything like the original series.
Yeah, it's very. I keep calling it like a caricature. It feels like caricaturesque to me. Like some of the characters are like their dial is like clanked up to like. It's like.
I think they were trying to make it more appealing. I think it has the same vibes as like the series at the start of the series.
Yeah, and I don't like hate it, obviously, by any means.
No.
It's just different. It's a different animal.
I really enjoy it. I think it's really funny. But yeah, it definitely is a different vibe from the main series. And also, I wonder, if they were trying to pitch for the show to come back, if, they kind of needed to, like, make it more palatable.
I think that might have been it.
And it's not that there's not like good emotional beats in that episode or anything like that. There are good emotional beats, and there's good like little Easter eggs and references. I believe that the bird from nature makes an appearance in that as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
There's a lot of like little things that definitely like sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. But it's a good episode. It's a good episode.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Beforel Orel feels like somehow like the average Adult Swim show. That they were trying to give that vibe,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this again. They're like trying to make it more appealing.
They wanted it to be lighthearted and funny. I just checked to see when BoJack Horseman came out, and that was around 2014. So they were 2 years before the mark of potentially bringing back like that sadcom story.
Yeah. Like BoJack just became like so popular and critically acclaimed. Like if it had happened, I think maybe like a couple seasons into BoJack, because the first season's a bit weaker, like a couple seasons in, I think they could have done it.
Yeah. Like they would have gone all in if that was the time that they'd done it. But 2012, the whole landscape was less so.
They weren't there yet.
2012 was right before Frozen came out.
Wow, that just killed me a little inside.
Oh no.
So we have. So you're telling us we need to let it go?
Oh my god. No. I'm never letting this go.
I'm gonna hold on forever. I'm gonna clutch my pearls until this comes out in 2025.
Bro, I'll be 80 and I'll be like, when are they bringing back Moral Orel?
Vito will be like dead. He'll be like, oh my god. But like, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like a lot of people, like, especially before the resurgence online, did not know that this show even existed. So shows like BoJack come along and be like, wow, this is like revolutionary. Oh my gosh. And it's like, but this has been done, but we just didn't know it. Like, it's crazy.
That's the thing. It's, things like shows like BoJack and F is for Family actually redirect attention at things like Moral Orel, because, people didn't know about it, and then suddenly people are saying, hey, there's this old Adult Swim show that was doing this thing before this show was doing this thing, and then people start watching it again.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's an urban legend saying this show was too dark for television, so they had to cancel it. And then people make millions of video essays on it on YouTube, and then get millions of views and totally misinterpret your favorite characters. Okay, so, Moral Orel can be considered an unfinished creative work that would have had complete character arcs, or you could accept what you have and say it's considered a completed work that is a domestic tragedy where the main characters don't receive a satisfying conclusion to their arcs, and they remain miserable in the minds of the audience.
Moral Orel's reputation as the darkest series to ever air on television is because the story was canceled at its most depressing turn, and no character in the main cast had the opportunity to bounce back in the narrative.
If it were to be brought back, which the creator doesn't want to do, but the cast would be down for, as we saw recently in one of the interviews as well, the experimental quality of the third season would allow for it to be picked up right where it left off, and even fill in narrative gaps that the writers left open.
Subscribe button.
Cool
presentation.
If you like this Moral Orel video, please make sure that you smash that like button and follow us on TikTok.
If you want more Moral content, smash that like button.
Ring a ding that bell.
Smash that subscribe like Danielle smashed Roberta.
I had fucking water in my mouth.
Like and subscribe.
Oh my gosh.
Pulls our every move with his steady hand, but we all still have the choice to be good or bad, so tidings are glad, for we all have a voice.